In this video I'm going to be going over multiple Naruto feats that pretty much prove that Naruto characters are planet level and much higher. Many of these are pretty much featured in my previous video on Naruto attack potency and destruction feats, however I will also be adding some new ones. So let's get started. In the last, the chakra of a few dozen Chunin and Jonin from the Hidden Cloud village was enough to destroy the moon as stated. Admittedly they took time to gather that chakra, but even so that would scale to the high tiers of the verse, as the entire chakra reserves of even hundreds of regular shinobi scales massively below any tailed beast, so tailed beasts pretty much scale to this. On top of cutting the moon, Tonri sent its halves flying at a velocity of 6.1 km per second. This is energy equal to roughly 281 exatons of TNT, or moon plus level. Tonri was also moving the moon at 5.1 km per second, which would require energy equal to roughly 200 exatons of TNT, or moon level. A base Tonri as well had enough power to do the same thing. To make this feat even more impressive, Tonri was going to crash the moon against Earth with enough force to destroy not just humanity itself but also the very planet and turn it into ash, which would require overcoming the planet's gravitational binding energy, which would be 53 zetatons of TNT or planet level, and considering the fact that the moon falling on Earth doesn't have nearly as much energy to do this on its own, we can conclude that most of that energy came from Tonri himself. Tonri being planet level is consistent, as after he absorbed Kurama Cloak Naruto's energy, Tonri stated that he would destroy the Earth with his next attack. And that was a base Tonri without the Teisengan anymore. On top of all this, the Teisengan on its own was capable of crashing the moon towards Earth with enough force to destroy it, and afterwards it was even stated that it would be creating a new planet. And Naruto in his base form destroyed it with Hinata. He had also overpowered Tonri and defeated him in one hit, so all of these feats would scale to KCM Naruto, even without his 6 paths powers. Next up we have Hagoromo creating the moon and putting it into orbit in his deathbed. Assuming a time frame of 24 hours, which is a wobble if anything, we get required energy between 69.6 zetatons of TNT and 626 zetatons of TNT, depending on the angle at which he threw it into orbit, both of which are planet level. There is the misconception that Hagoromo created the moon together with Hamura and therefore it was a shared feat. That's not the case, that was only in the filler. In the manga, Hagoromo and Hamura simply sealed the Tails inside Hagoromo, not directly into the moon. The moon's creation happened decades later when Hagoromo was literally dying. He split the chakra of the Tails in 9 pieces and created the tailed beasts. He then removed the chakraless Gedo statue from his body, created the moon and sealed the statue inside the moon, then put the moon into orbit. So this was not a shared feat. Then we have Madara's 6 paths deep forest emergence. With this jutsu, Madara used his chakra to spread the roots of the Divine Tree across the whole world and capture all living beings. Through some calculation, we can find out that the minimum amount of fruits the Divine Tree has is 2746. Using the average radius and volume of the roots and multiplying it by the number of fruits, we get 1.7 times 10 to the 19 kilograms. Since Madara managed to very quickly spread the roots of the Divine Tree and everyone was caught in the span of a few pages, and these characters are pretty much faster than light, we can safely assume that the time frame was between 5 and 15 seconds, which means that Madara moved this entire mass with a velocity between 667 km per second and 2000 km per second. That would be low-end planet level, which is not hard to believe considering the fact that Madara was stated to be nearing Hagoromo's level, and that was even before he absorbed the Divine Tree and before attaining his third Rinnegan. Madara also has another impressive feat, which is his 6 paths Chubaku Tensei. Using his chakra he creates 25 large meteors, and an uncountable amount of small ones. Each of the large meteors dwarfs the Divine Tree, which is calculated to be 60 kilometers. Scaling of the Divine Tree we can find each individual meteor's volume and size, and with that even mass. On top of creating them, he hurled them into the stratosphere at incredible speeds. Considering the fact that it took Madara a single panel to do it, we can assume that it happened within seconds. Calculating the height he lifted them at, and using the anime's time frame of 22 seconds, which is a wobble if anything, we get a total kinetic energy of 771.23 exatons of TNT, which is small planet level. We also have Naruto and Sasuke creating the moon that's compared to ours in size, and hurling it into space, which is calculated anywhere between moon plus and planet level. As a bonus there is Storm 4, in which we have two black hole feats, not just one but two. The first one is Madara creating a black hole. It works like one, it looks like one, and it's stated to be one. It meets all the criteria. Calculating the size, we get about 23 centimeters, which means that this black hole has mass over 32 times more than that of Earth's, and it makes it large planet level. Calculating the power, we get 2.8 10 to the 37 joules, which is close to dwarf star level. But as I said, that's nothing, because Naruto in his 6 parts mode has an ultimate jutsu. In it he goes Kurama mode and throws two massive Rasen Shuriken, much like he did against Sasuke. The explosion is so powerful that it eventually creates a black hole and it starts sucking things in. It both looks and acts like a black hole. Judging by the radius at which light cannot escape, we can measure to more than a kilometer, considering the fact that it dwarfs the Rasen Shurikens themselves, which are almost as big as Kurama, who can be counted hundreds of meters tall. Like, it completely dwarfs them. It even dwarfs the explosion that they created initially. But even assuming just a kilometer, which is a massive wall ball, we still get mass equal to 1/3 of that of the sun, which makes this large planet level. And we can go way higher than that. And as another bonus, in the second Naruto movie, Naruto overpowers the pull of a black hole. Admittedly, it did not work exactly like a regular black hole, as it didn't suck absolutely everything around it within it. It only sucked things within a certain range, things it was meant to suck. So maybe it was a controlled black hole, who knows. However, it's directly stated to be a black hole. Its size was bigger than that of a castle. For the sake of this argument, we'll treat it like it has the power of a real black hole. The size of said black hole completely dwarfs the platform that they were on, which is at least 30 meters in diameter. So I'm gonna give it like 100 meters, and with such radius at which light cannot escape, that gives it mass more than 11,000 times that of Earth's, which is 0.03 that of the Sun. Essentially, this is pretty much large planet level. So far we established that the tailed beasts would be moon level, and we established that the 6 paths characters would be at least planet level. But if you've watched my channel, you'd know that the verse has much better feats than this. Kaguya was going to one-shot and recreate her whole dimension with her expansive truth-seeking orb, and we know that her dimensions have stars as they have light sources and day-to-night cycles. Furthermore, she was going to destroy the dimension on a 4-dimensional scale, even assuming that her dimension is only a solar system. Destroying a time-space of such size would require energy beyond anything in our universe. Supernovas, black holes, gamma burst rays, while very powerful, do not manage to destroy time-space, much less such large size. Not even supermassive black holes can tear time-space. So we can comfortably say that Kaguya's energy would scale above solar system level, at multi-solar system level of this alone. Then we have the fact that Kaguya's dimension is so large that 6 paths Obito could hardly even use Kamui a few times in a row there, and implied that the main problem was how vast the dimension was. Rika Obito had no issue using Kamui multiple times in a row in the universe, making Kaguya's dimension larger than the universe, and since she was going to destroy and recreate it on a 4-dimensional scale, that would make her possibly universal plus level. And considering how even Storm 4 depicts her dimension as at least a galaxy, that's not hard to believe. On top of her being able to obliterate and recreate her entire universe, the way that Kaguya teleports people is that she swaps the worlds. She swaps the entire time space she's in. She moves those time spaces and everything in them except her and people near her. This means that when Kaguya used it on Earth, she moved the entire universe and swapped it with another dimension, and that happened in the span of a single panel. Even assuming that the lava dimension she swapped it with was only a small solar system as it had a planet and a star, Kaguya would still need to move the universe at least a few million kilometers. The observable universe alone has the mass of 1.5 times 10 to the 53rd kilograms, and that's just the ordinary matter. Moving that even 300 million kilometers in that one instant she performed the feat that would give us energy of 6.705075 times 10 to the 69th joules, 1.6 times 10 to the 60th tons of TNT, which is on the lower end of multi-galaxy level. These feats are not hard to believe considering the fact that it's implied that Kaguya has created her own dimensions, and considering the fact that Momoshiki was stated to have created his own time space that contains multiple stars in the Boruto movie novel, which is officially recognized as canon. We also have Obito in the Road to Ninja movie, in which Obito is using the power of the tailed beast to create a different universe that mirrors ours, and is even shown containing many stars, which would be once again a universe level feat, which would scale below Jubito, and once again this is canon as we have multiple Naruto movies being canonized by the novels, on top of Kishimoto drawing a bonus chapter that leads directly into the movie and being involved in the movie's script. We also have Jigen moving an entire dimensions with multiple stars in it to prevent Sasuke from accessing it again, so the Suzuki Clan members being able to literally move whole dimensions or create dimensions is nothing new. It's also stated multiple times that the universe has been created through yin and yang. It's stated that this is the principle of creating matter out of nothing and giving matter life. Black Zetsu wrote that the universe has been created that way, by a god. The data books directly confirm that by saying that everything has been created that way. The fourth data book even states that Ten Tails has created the universe, though it can also be translated to world, and that has multiple definitions. But considering the fact that we know that Ten Tails did not originate on Earth, and that it came from elsewhere, it's possible that it truly created the universe, which would be consistent with Obito creating a parallel universe using pieces of the Ten Tails. And that book also states that Hagoromo, who is the Ten Tails Jinchuruki, has access to the same jutsu that created everything, which is again consistent with Ten Tails creating the universe itself. Lastly, we have Madara's infinite Tsukuyomi, in which he creates a different world for everybody, and that would include even animals. Since in Road to Ninja we find out that Obito created a physical universe using the limited Tsukuyomi, which is a prototype of the infinite Tsukuyomi, we can assume that the worlds Madara created were physical as well. This is pretty much similar to how Anti-Spiral trapped the minds of the entire main cast inside a physical multiverse that grew each time they perceived something. We have at least one world created per living being, and again this includes even animals. The universes Madara creates are stated to be infinite, which is consistent with the regular Tsukuyomi creating infinite worlds. So essentially each universe Madara creates is infinite 4-dimensional, which is multiversal plus, and given the fact that he creates quadrillions of those, it's pretty fair to say that Madara may be more complex multiversal. And now I'll be debunking some misconceptions. Firstly, the chakra cannon only transports chakra, but it's never stated to add energy to it. So what's going to destroy the moon is still those shinobi's chakra regardless. On top of this, cannons and guns add energy by shooting something at high speeds. That's the way they add energy. And judging by the scene of it firing the chakra, its speed is not light speed or beyond. In that case, any shinobi with more chakra than those dozens of shinobi, that's light speed or faster, can generate greater energy than the cannon. Tailed beasts, as well as higher end characters such as the Kage, have both of this. There is the argument that the moon was not going to be destroyed, but it was only going to be transported elsewhere. That's false. Raikage has stated several times that the cannon would blow up the moon, so we know that the moon would have been destroyed as well. All this means is that they would have destroyed it and then transported it to prevent its debris from falling on Earth. There is the argument that the moon in Naruto is hollow, but that's irrelevant as it still retains the same mass. The mass did not disappear. Hamura and his clan simply dug underground to create enough space for them to have cities in deep within the moon, and to be able to look over the Gedo statue, which was pretty much near the center. But the matter they dug would still be on the surface, it wouldn't just vanish. On top of this, the entire moon isn't hollow. For starters, those cities that they were at were not floating in there. There must have been ground below the cities. So yes, the moon is not hollow. So the moon would remain mostly the same as when it was originally created. Not to mention that all the calcs used the estimated 50% hollow rate to begin with. There is the argument that Kaguya needed to take the chakra of the shinobi that were caught in the infinite Tsukuyomi to destroy and recreate her dimension. That's not the case. 50% of Kurama alone had multiple times more chakra than the entire Shinobi Alliance, and that's before the Ten Tails killed the majority of the Alliance and before most of them exhausted their chakra fighting. So the Shinobi were not much of a factor. She didn't even gain as much energy as what half of Kurama had. Considering she scales massively above the Ten Tails, which scales massively above Kurama, and that she also had the other half of Kurama's power, we can safely assume that most of the energy still came directly from her, even assuming that her energy increased by roughly 33.3%, which is a massive wobble for her. That would still mean that roughly 66.6% of the feat would scale to her, which would still be universe level. Then there is the argument that the reason Obito struggled to open up a portal is because it wasn't his dimension and therefore it required more chakra to use the Kamui in. This is irrelevant as the universe is also not his dimension, yet he had no issue using Kamui in it. Not to mention that the reason he required more chakra to save Sasuke is because he needed to create portals randomly as he didn't know which dimension Sasuke was in. I've also seen the argument that the distance between the dimensions was the main issue, not the size. That's not true, as Obito's main concern was the vastness of the dimension, not the distance, meaning that it was a bigger factor than the distance, assuming there was any distance to begin with. There is also the fact that all her dimensions are directly connected, so there is probably no distance in between them. Regardless, her Genesis dimension would be universe-sized. There is the argument that in Road to Ninja Obito simply put Naruto and Sakura into a genjutsu and that he didn't create an actual world. This is false, as it's been stated multiple times, time after time, that they were in another world and that they were physically teleported there. On top of it being said and implied that it wasn't a genjutsu, and even Naruto and Sakura retaining the same battle damage they had in the other world once they returned to their world, and a whole bunch of other things that make the argument that it was all genjutsu nonsensical, which you can see on the screen. I had an entire video on the topic, you can check it out. So regardless, Obito still created a parallel universe. Not to mention that in Naruto some jutsu can turn genjutsu into reality, so just saying that it's a genjutsu based move doesn't negate it creating an actual physical world, because genjutsu is shown being able to affect reality and create real things.